Everyone, here's what's happening at this hour. U.S. Health Secretary Alex Azar has called on the Tanzanian government to release the lab results of a woman who died after suffering Ebola-like symptoms. He spoke in the Ugandan capital of Kampala today.
We are very concerned about the lack of transparency regarding the initial death of the individual. And we are calling on the Tanzanian government to be transparent and make available laboratory results and information regarding the death of that individual.
The leaders of Russia, Iran, and Turkey meeting in the Turkish capital of Ankara today to discuss the situation in Syria with the aim of halting fighting in the country's northwestern province. Hundreds of thousands of Syrians have moved towards Turkey's border to flee Syrian airstrikes. Back here at home, Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger will undergo surgery on his right elbow and be placed on injured reserve. He's out for the season. He injured his arm late in the second quarter of Sunday's 28-26 loss to Seattle. You are up to date. That's the news update this hour. Kelly, back to you.
Wow. All right, Sue, thank you very much. Sue Herrera. Here's what else is coming up today on The Exchange.
Ahead, more bad economic news out of China. Does it mean that our policies are working? One Wall Street firm says it's time to buy Uber and Lyft. We complain and complain, but is there really a tech backlash? And some good news for Apple in China. That's all ahead on The Exchange.
2, 1, fade away.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
The 1304 LNER train, Coach C. Taking aunties with cold hands to nephews with warm cheeks in Edinburgh. Remorseful revellers back to their beds in Leeds. Business mums gliding over the Forth Bridge towards a door in Toddlers in Newcastle. And a band heading to London to our group of strangers in a tiny pub. This is us. These are our journeys. This is our LNER.
Green coat can cause cancer. They've hidden that. So that's where the law comes in.
If you fight for what's right, you can change the world.
Love City Law, September 23rd on NBC.
Welcome back. Let's catch you up on a couple stories that should be on your radar today. It's Rapid Fire, and here with their takes on the headlines, Contessa Brewer, Bill Griffith, and Seema Modi. Great to have you all on board. First up, more evidence that China's economy is slowing down. Industrial production growth in China hitting a 17.5-year low overnight. This comes as the Cass Freight Index for the U.S. reports that August shipping data fell year on year for the 9th straight month. Are these dots connected, guys? Seems like they are screaming, China's slowdown is really crimping the U.S.
Yeah, the data is certainly showing that effect. And what's interesting is that unlike here in the U.S., where we're seeing a divergence in the data, weak manufacturing but strong consumer, right. In China, it's quite the opposite, where you're seeing the softness in industrial production and manufacturing now start to bleed through to the consumer. And that's why we did see that slowdown in Chinese retail sales. That's certainly going to be a concern as earnings season kicks off in another 2 weeks, where companies like Nike and Starbucks will likely be in focus to see how strong is the Chinese consumer, despite the data saying that things aren't going that well.
And I mean, it's going to be hard, I guess, to tease it out, cause and effect wise, but it seems like the trade war is having a definite impact.
Oh, absolutely. And, this unique hybrid they have going of communist government with capitalist economy, one thing that the centralized government cannot control is the consumer.
They try.
Well,
they have other ways. They can surveil them. They can track them.
Well, so do we, from that standpoint. But they can't do away with the business cycle, and they're just suffering from that. The law of large numbers kicking in, all those things going on right now. And yes, they are definitely being hit by the tariffs in this trade war.
And I think you can look at the sectors too.
That,
I'm new. You know what I think? I think when you look at casinos, which I follow closely, factory owners are the ones who are these VIP gamblers. And so when you see a slowdown in industrial output and exports, who does it hurt? It hurts the guys that own the factories. And that's why there's some consternation on the part of these casinos about whether that's driving some of the slowness in VIP growth. If you look at real estate in New York, if you have luxury apartments sitting on the market and not selling, is it because our foreign buyers have evaporated? If you look at tourism, and I know you're following this, Seema, as well, the Chinese are not coming to America the way they were for the previous decade.
It's a problem for
and
colleges.
It hurts a lot of people.
And by the way, I mean, we talk a lot about the ghost towns that China has built over the last decade. New York luxury real estate is starting to be a little bit of a ghost town of its own. Great takeout in the Times on that over the weekend. But let's talk some Uber and Lyft, shall we? They are up today. They're rising in the session after HSBC upgraded the stocks to a buy. They're saying the companies are making moves towards profitable growth and lower costs. They're also saying that regulatory risks should be largely priced in now. You can see Uber up about 3.5%. It's just over 34 today. Meanwhile, WeWork, another company with a long-anticipated IPO, getting major support from a SoftBank plan to buy at least $750 million worth of shares. You don't want to say they're propping up the IPO, but the news flow hasn't been that great.
Well, they own $10 billion of the private offering to begin with, so they are already very, very deep in this thing. And if they want this IPO to come off, they've got to pony up some more money. So they're going to have to put something together.
Yes, as Leslie made the point last week, Uber's probably glad that it went before WeWork, Uber and Lyft, as opposed to after, because they've had enough of a struggle as it is, but
I was speaking to one friend who knows Masayoshi's son very well, and I asked him if this will change SoftBank's investment style, perhaps become a bit more conservative given the underperformance of Uber and also the repricing of WeWork's valuation. He said, absolutely not. If anything, Masayoshi's son is going to double down. If you look at his history, I mean, this is a man who was at one point almost bankrupt, but then took a big bet on Yahoo and then Alibaba. So if anything, he's going to really try to make sure
if he wants to be the cowboy and do that is great. And he has done, I mean, it's been amazing to watch everything he's pulled off, but I wonder about the impact on Silicon Valley, because all of these valuations driven by his vision, pun intended, are having ripple effects where what they're able to come out with in public markets is way different.
But don't forget, Goldman Sachs put out that report last week, the analysis that showed that it's not necessarily whether you have near-term profitability that gauges the success of these companies. It's what their sales do over the first 3 years. And all three of these companies are showing significant year-over-year sales growth.
Mm-hmm. And that's the question, is if they can keep that going. That goes back to the upgrade this morning, Bill. They say, at some point, does it all get priced in? And people are reminded of why they like these companies.
I don't know how you can price it in when you don't even know what the regulations are going to be yet.
Right.
I mean, they've just begun this process right now. See California legislature.
Exactly. And speaking of regulation, a new op-ed in the New York Times says the backlash against big tech has been greatly exaggerated. It says despite the threat of regulation, fines being imposed, a more critical press, and users threatening to quit all the time, big tech and their products have never been more popular.
Who's positing a backlash?
I think there is a bit of a backlash emotionally, but we can't let go of these things.
I can't quit you.
Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, you get your report card of what your usage was the previous week. Mine was down 45%, and I cheered.
This is for your screen time on your phone?
Yes, exactly.
Is that because you're actively trying to stay off your device?
No, I'm not. That's the thing.
His wife has set limits on him.
I hate myself for spending as much time on the screen as I do, and right now it's about 3.5 hours a day, which I find abhorrent, but I am watching old movies in some cases, But I think, we have the same relationship with food. You know, you go to the cafeteria and you see somebody walk out with a really nice, meal, and you say, oh man, that's too much. I couldn't eat all that. We have this love-hate relationship with food as well, just as we do with technology.
Tech is not a nice to have. It's become essential. Communication is not
and we hate that
nice
it's
to have.
essential
It's a
now,
must have, right? And so despite the pushback from politicians and all the regulatory concerns, and these tech products certainly aren't perfect. Some of them are spying on us, but still, we use them.
Listen, when I can't pry the iPhone out of my grandmother's hands, there's no tech backlash. This is all some made-up premise to write an op-ed about.
Well, but I'll tell you what it's really about is regulation. So the antitrust law currently has to show consumer harm, usually it comes down to price, right? Monopolies, they raise price, bad for the consumer. If they cannot demonstrate that there is consumer harm in this case, they are literally going to have to rewrite the antitrust law to go after these companies in a different way.
That's smart.
And I think that's what it all comes down to. That's why it matters how much screen time you're doing
I agree.
as of late.
Absolutely. Get it out of my hands, would you?
By the way, I'm still under 2 hours, but it's creeping. It's going.
Yeah, now that you've come back to social media, that baby's going up.
Way up. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Contessa Brewer, Bill Griffith, and Seema Modi. Finally, I'm sorry, there's a whole other story that we haven't finished yet.
Sit back down.
New data released by a Chinese e-commerce firm and authorized Apple reseller says nearly 2/3 of Chinese pre-orders for the new line of iPhones were for the cheaper iPhone 11. The success of the phone in China extremely important to Apple. Check out these numbers. In the second quarter of 2019, shipments dropped 14% year on year, and Apple's market share fell from where you see on the left 6.4% to just 5.8%. So is it still good that, hey, there's healthy demand for this new product? Or is it, hey, we needed this to be strong demand for the most expensive product?
Apple's breaking it down in a way that makes it seem very affordable. If you're willing to trade in your new phone, you can get it for starting $399. But here's what got me. The wait times for the 64 gig and the 128 gig are stretching to October. Who has not learned by this point that 64 gigs, especially with a brand new awesome camera that takes up so much data, 64 gigs is not enough.
I think I'm in the cloud, though. I think doesn't the cloud with the photos help you kind of get around a lot of that?
Yeah.
Have you heard of the cloud?
How
about your grandmother? Does she have 64 gigs?
No, I got her the big phone.
But what's also interesting about this? It goes back to what Seema was saying off the top, which is it was trying to slow down spreading from an industrial one to a consumer one. And the anecdotes about iPhone demand probably speak to that.
Well, in this type of environment, I think it goes to show how pricing is very important.
Very
so if
much.
you bring the price down, especially for a consumer in a lot of these emerging markets which tend to be a bit more price conscious, it certainly can work. And this is why Apple has failed in some of the other emerging markets like Philippines and India, where there are other competitors like Xiaomi and Samsung that offer similar devices at a much more affordable
Then
price
this
point.
is the new Apple. To be price conscious, you get them in the door and they become part of the Apple ecosystem, and then they get into the services at that point.
But at what cost to margins, I guess?
Well, the margins on the hardware are going to be one thing, but if they can be made up for on the services side, then you've found success here.
Yeah,
you found a good business model.
With that kind of market share, they have some tough sledding.
Yeah, no, that's for sure in
grow
China.
that.
But they're finding good high demand at lower prices. What a surprise!
What a shock!
Right?
And now we're done. Thank you all.
You sure?
I'm pretty
Nothing
sure
else?
this time. Contessa Brewer, Bill Griffith, and Seema Modi. Coming up, Immune Therapeutics. Its stock is falling more than 6% today, but still climbed more than 17% last week as its peanut allergy therapy gets recommended for FDA approval. We're going to talk to the CEO, Dr. Jason Dallas, next.
Markets. For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
What's that, Britain? You want unlimited data? Oh, you want more. You want it on the unstoppable, unbeaten, unrivaled #1 network? Well, who says you can't? Get unlimited data on EE today, the UK's unrivaled #1 network.
Unlimited data, personal use only. Terms apply. Root metrics comparison of 4 mobile networks H2 2013 to H1 2019. See ee.co.uk.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
Welcome back. An FDA advisory panel has given the green light for approval to the first ever peanut allergy therapy. It's produced by Immune Therapeutics. For more on what this means for the company and for the pharmaceutical industry overall, let's bring in our own Meg Terrell. Well, the stock is actually a little bit lower today, Meg.
That's right. It is. So this outside advisory panel to the FDA voted on Friday that both the efficacy and safety data for Immune's peanut allergy treatment were enough to support approval. So next up, the regulator is set to decide on whether to approve by the end of January. And though the vote was positive, the committee did focus on side effects associated with the treatment. It's made of peanut flour, and the goal is to increase patients' tolerance to peanuts over time. Now, clinical trials showed it was able to do that successfully for most patients, but because the treatment is the very thing that patients are allergic to, some had allergic reactions and required epinephrine shots. Questions now turn to what commercialization of the treatment will look like if it's approved. And for that and more, we welcome Dr. Jason Dallas, CEO of Immune, joining us now in a CNBC exclusive. Dr. Dallas, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
So it sounded like relatively positive news on Friday. Your stock is trading off a little bit this morning. What do you make of investor reaction?
Yeah, you know, it's actually a fundamentally important time for us and for the treatment of folks with food allergy. And sometimes you see the stock run up a little bit coming into these advisory committees because we publish our briefing documents and the FDA publish the documents that they're making available to brief the advisors in advance of the meeting. And we saw a little bit of that last week. But, you know, for us, what's more important is the downstream value here. We're in this for the long game, and there are a lot of people who don't have therapeutic options for any food allergies at the moment.
Dr. Dallas, it's going to be welcomed by a lot of parents. Even anecdotally, friends of mine whose kids are dealing with this were thrilled to hear it, but wondered about the cost, and we're a little worried about it. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so, you know, we wouldn't be an awesome company if we were bringing therapies to market where the patients could not afford that. So we're right in the middle of doing the work on what we're going to be charging for this. But our goal is to make certain that the patients and the families who need to get access to this kind of medicine will be able to do that.
What are your conversations like with the insurer community right now? You know, some people might say this is just peanuts. Why should we pay thousands of dollars for that?
Yeah, so first of all, you know, it's not just peanuts. If you went out and bought different kinds of peanut flours and you looked at the actual content of them, it's astounding that there's about a 400-fold difference in the amount of peanut protein that you can find from one flour to the next. And when you're doing immunotherapy, which is what this is, you start with really tiny doses of the thing that someone's allergic to, and you increase that slowly over time. But the exact amount of the dose and the exact amount of the protein is really very important. And the one thing that we do here is we have what we call an allergenic fingerprint, which means that the protein that they're getting is exactly the same every single time. And the doses that we can deliver are accurate. You know, the lowest dose we give when we start this is about 1/600th of a peanut. And it's really hard to do that without having something that's weighed and that is made in a proper pharmaceutical manufacturing facility.
You might have partly answered my next question, which is going to be about what makes your therapy so special. You know, if what you guys have done works, why couldn't tons of other companies rush into this space and provide the very same thing?
Well, this is exactly the core of it, is that we have this allergenic fingerprint that ensures that every patient who takes our product gets the same allergen over and over and over again. And one of the things we've observed when doctors have tried to do this kind of treatment using food products is as the food product changes over time, patients can get treated, or what we call desensitized, and then resensitized again as they use different versions of the allergen. So this is very, very important to the product we have.
And about the safety profile of this product, What do you say to parents who say, I would love to get this protection for my child, but I'm terrified to give them the very thing that could, be very dangerous for them? How do you manage that safety profile?
Sure. So, the idea of giving someone very small doses of the things they're allergic to treat their allergy over time has been around for about 100 years. And, there are about 3 million people every year who go and have allergy shots for their hay fever. Well, that's exactly the same biology as what we're doing. And we know that those shots can cause allergic reactions as you're getting desensitized to whatever it is that's causing your hay fever. Here we have the same thing. The difference here is that this is an oral therapy, and it's treating a life-threatening disease rather than something that is just a quality of life disease. Our job is to make certain that parents and families understand exactly what it is that they're getting into with this therapy, and really pointing to the end game. And the end game of this is that knowing your child can go to a birthday party, a summer camp, a holiday on an airplane, which they may never have done before, and if they get exposed accidentally to peanuts, that they're not going to have a life-threatening event. That is really the end game of this, right? We're not suggesting folks should eat a lot of peanuts. They should continue to avoid peanuts. They're still allergic to them, but they're not going to have a life-threatening event.
Well, that would improve the quality of life for everybody. Dr. Dallas, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Jason Dallas with Immune, and Meg, thank you very much as well. Meg Terrell. Coming up next, United Auto Workers holding their first strike since 2007, with members walking out of GM plants at the stroke of midnight. We're going to head to Detroit for the latest, including the impact on the automaker coming up. Also, tune in to Mad Money tomorrow. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will join Jim Cramer. That starts at 6 p.m. You won't want to miss it.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
First world problem number 346.
Well, people might think I'm exaggerating, but since Virgin Atlantic announced their sale, I can't sleep. 1 minute my head is in New York, the next I'm searching for shows in Vegas. I can't stop. So many choices. South Africa, the Caribbean, California. My search history is a total mess. Oh, I might need to bring it up with my life coach.
Seriously? Get a flight. Bing bong. The Virgin Atlantic sale is now on. Visit virginatlantic.com and fly direct from London.
With a new Corsa Griffin, you'll get a whole host of features.
Really?
As standard.
Oh, come on.
For just $159 a month and $159 initial rental.
No way.
Corsa Griffin. All Griffin, no bull.
What? Seriously?
Search Corsa Griffin. Vauxhall. British brand since 1903. Available at participating retailers while stocks last. Personal contract hire on Corsa Griffin 3-door 1.475 PS. Subject to status, T's and C's, 18+. Initial rental 159 plus 47 months at 159. Contracted mileage 24,000. You will not own the car. Vauxhall Finance Leasing.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can hear every NFL game live as it's happening, or catch it later on demand. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Welcome back. The United Auto Workers are striking against General Motors in the first national strike since 2007. Contract talks between GM and the UAW resumed this morning. Phil LeBeau is out on the picket line in Detroit with the latest this afternoon. Phil?
And Kelly, here's what's going on in those negotiations. They are still at the bargaining table. We're not going to get an update likely today. I think that they have said, look, we're talking again. And from there, we probably won't get an update. Maybe not today, maybe not for several days. The two key issues: job guarantees, which the UAW wants. They also want General Motors to limit the use of temporary workers, which gives the automaker more flexibility. One area where you are unlikely to see General Motors make a lot of concessions, it comes to their use of plants in Mexico. That has been a key driver of profits for General Motors. Last year, they imported from there 633,000 vehicles, made up about 29% of the vehicles General Motors sold in the United States. By the way, GM is the #1 importer from Mexico. You'll hear a lot of people with the UAW say, well, look, instead of building a vehicle down in Mexico, you should have built it at the Lordstown plant in Ohio. I can tell you from talking with those who are close to the negotiations, General Motors is discussing the possibility of an electric vehicle battery plant in the Lordstown area that would be staffed by UAW members. Whether or not that is enough to at least appease some of the people in the UAW, we'll have to see. But by the way, guys, take a look at shares of General Motors. While it is at the low of the day, and it's down, 4% or so, this is not a huge impact on the stock, at least not yet.
Phil, on a different and much sadder note, before we let you go, we want to let our viewers know that a longtime friend of the network and a plugged-in voice about the auto industry, Paul Ingrassia, has passed away. Paul spent many years as the Detroit bureau chief at the Wall Street Journal. He later became president of Dow Jones Newswire. He covered the auto industry for decades, of course. He authored several books about the ups and downs of the Big Three. He won a Pulitzer Prize in 1993 for his reporting on the management crisis at GM. He was just on with us a couple of weeks ago. He was very sick. He wanted to keep his appearance. Phil, it's terrible news to have to share this hour.
It is. It is, Kelly. And my thoughts, first and foremost, are of Paul as a friend, one of the kindest persons you would ever meet. And he was just a good-hearted, genuine person, the kind of person when he would come into the Chicago Bureau and we would talk to him before he would have a live shot, it was rarely talking about the auto industry. It was always talking about what's happening in our lives personally. With regard to Paul as a journalist, go back and read a lot of the coverage in 1993 about the GM management crisis. Textbook journalism. That's why he won a Pulitzer Prize. And he's going to be missed. He'll be missed by a lot of people. I'll miss him, not only as a journalist, but more importantly, I will miss him as a friend.
He was a wonderful, wonderful man. Phil, thank you very much, Phil LeBeau. And again, we're so sorry to share the news of the passing of Paul Ingrassia. We'll be right back.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
What's that, Britain? You want unlimited data? Oh, you want more. You want it on the unstoppable, unbeaten, unrivaled #1 network? Well, who says you can't? Get unlimited data on EE today, the UK's unrivaled #1 network.
Unlimited data, personal use only. Terms apply. Route metrics comparison of 4 mobile networks H2 2013 to H1 2019. See ee.co.uk.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
Smouldering, slinky, seductive, streamlined, spellbinding. Ever notice how some of the most alluring descriptions seem to begin with the letter S? So perhaps it's no coincidence that S-Line, Audi's most stylish trim, does too. Take the A7 Sportback S-Line. With its added standout, there's another one, details. It's pure Audi. Just even more sporty, stealthy, sleek, striking, swish, sublime, sultry, swoony. The supremely stylish Audi A7 Sportback S-Line. Test drive yours at West London Audi or search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik.
Welcome back. California is now the latest state, and Chicago the latest city set to restrict e-cigarettes. This after New York banned flavored e-cigarettes yesterday, and New Jersey legislators called for action as more states start restricting vaping products and efforts to combat the epidemic that has reportedly claimed 6 lives and caused hundreds of illnesses. The irony is that e-cigs were originally created to help people quit smoking combustible cigarettes. It's just that when they started vaping, they couldn't stop. Here to kick off our series, taking a closer look at vaping, are Ainsley Harris, the senior writer at Fast Company, and Angelica Levito, who is a reporter for CNBC.com. And it's great to have you both here. Ainsley, first of all, Juul, which is now at the heart of a lot of this, was a company set out to create a better way for people to quit cigarettes, right? So what do you think is happening now that there's a risk e-cigarettes could be banned altogether?
Oh, it's definitely a huge risk for Juul. They were founded as a way to switch smokers off of combustible cigarettes. If you go back and watch the original graduate thesis presentation that the co-founders presented, that's very much their aim. They were looking to target smokers. I don't think they were looking to target teenagers. That said, we now have this epidemic, both among teenagers with flavored pods, but also with black market e-liquids. And it's a problem that they're going to have to deal with, and I think they're going to have to retrench for a while.
And there's regulators going after them for false advertising and that sort of thing. Angelica, you cover this, but you also have firsthand family experience with this and getting your dad switched off of cigarettes, right?
Exactly. So last year, I was reporting on adults who were using this to switch off of combustible cigarettes, and I called up my dad and thought, you know, you're in your 60s, you've been smoking for more than 30 years, Vietnam veteran, he's always been quitting, nothing's worked, why don't we try this? And he agreed. He was a little reluctant, so I bought him a starter kit and went over to his apartment and we looked at all the flavors. He liked fruit for some reason.
So to be clear, your dad, who was smoking tobacco cigarettes, wanted the fruit flavor.
He wanted the fruit flavor. He didn't care. He was not interested in anything else, but he wanted fruit. And so at first he didn't like it that much, but about a week later he said that he ditched the cigarettes altogether, and since then it's been 10 months and he hasn't smoked. And you know, we don't know the long-term health effects, but to me at least it's not a cigarette.
Are you worried about him using these products now? And at the same time, have we learned what the dangers are from vaping? Is it from the actual act of it, or does it seem to just be faulty or products that involve THC that are an issue?
So we don't know the long-term health effects of vaping. However, it does seem like with this particular outbreak, they are looking at THC as well as nicotine. It's really hard because people are using multiple products. But from what I've heard, it does seem like it's a lot of these THC products.
And Ainsley, I'm interested in, I mean, people will say to Juul, well, of course you were going after kids. Why else did you have, candy corn or whatever flavors of e-cigarettes that you were making? It seems like that was an intent to at least appeal to younger taste buds, although it's interesting that even someone like your dad, a longtime smoker, would have reached for one of the flavors.
Yeah, to me, I think what they were going after was they wanted to make this a luxury good. And so the co-founders really wanted to find urban professionals like themselves who were smokers who wanted to quit. They did sampling events at, trendy nightclubs like One Oak in New York City. They were going after that particular demographic. And to me, that's a huge missed opportunity because many smokers live below the poverty line. Many do not have a high level of education. So it's this huge market that they could have tapped, but instead they chose to try to market to people like themselves.
We're out of time, Angelica, but is there a risk that this ban on all products goes forward now?
Well, right now they're saying that tobacco flavor will be allowed to stay on the market. However, it's mint, menthol, fruity flavors straight from the Trump administration, and that's a huge problem for Juul. I mean, over the past year, of their $3.3 billion of sales, according to Nielsen, more than 80% of those sales came from flavors.
Yeah, huge problem. Guys, thank you, and appreciate you sharing your story as well. Angelica Levito, Ainsley Harris, thank you so much. And catch CNBC's documentary, Vaporized, America's E-Cigarette Addiction, tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. That does it for us. Power Lunch starts now.
Kelly, thank you very much, and we will see you over here at Power Lunch in just a moment. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tyler Matheson. Here is what's new at 2 on a Monday. Oil spiking. You probably have heard this. Energy stocks on a wild ride after a major oil facility in Saudi Arabia taken out, basically, in a drone attack. We have got the latest on that. Plus, the market's on edge as geopolitical tensions rise and the Fed decision later this week loom large. We will break down the biggest risks to your money this week and in the months ahead. And take a look at the markets. The major averages under pressure, still about 1% from all-time highs, which we have not seen since way back in July. The Dow is on track now to snap an 8-day winning streak that ran through last week. As you see there, down about 0.5% for the Dow. Losses mitigated a bit by the S&P and NASDAQ. Power Lunch starts right now. Well, the aftermath of those attacks in Saudi Arabia sending shockwaves throughout the U.S. From the White House to Wall Street and oil hubs like Houston, Texas, we've got our reporters and top energy experts on hand to break down the impact. Let's start with Eamon Javers in D.C. for the White House response. Eamon?
Yeah, Tyler, we're also getting some headlines just now that are crossing the wires about the Iranian leader who is speaking in Turkey right now. And President Rouhani now saying that the attack on Saudi Arabia's oil facility was a reciprocal measure, he says, by the Yemeni people to assaults on the country of Yemen. So this is the president of Iran, Rouhani, now suggesting that these attacks were carried out not by Iran, but by the Yemeni people. Presumably he's referring to the Houthis who control the capital there. He says the Yemeni people are exercising their legitimate right of defense. The attacks were a reciprocal response to aggression against Yemen for years. That's at a joint news conference with Russian and Turkish counterparts just within the past couple of minutes. So a new wrinkle there, as Iran has been blamed by some in the U.S. administration for conducting these attacks. The president hasn't necessarily embraced the idea that it was Iran behind this all along. Here's what Rick Perry, the energy secretary, said earlier today in placing the blame squarely in Iran's lap for the attacks.
I want to reiterate that the United States wholeheartedly condemns Iran's attack on the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And we call on other nations to do the same. This behavior is unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and they must be held responsible.
So, Tyler, now we've got this unusual situation where you do have the Secretary of Energy and the Secretary of State out there blaming Iran directly, using language that the president is not using. If you look at his most recent tweet on this, he raises the question of Iran's involvement, but doesn't answer that question definitively. He says now they say they had nothing to do with the attack on Saudi Arabia. We'll see, question mark. So the president laying out the possibility that Iran was behind this, but not necessarily going as far as the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Energy in blaming Iran for this. And just within the past couple of minutes, we now have the president of Iran saying that the attack was conducted by the Yemenis. Mike Pompeo has said that there's no evidence that the attack came from Yemen. So we're going to hear from the president here in a couple of minutes' time. He's going to be presenting a Medal of Freedom. He will have the opportunity to talk to reporters in this hour and again in the next hour in the Oval Office. So we'll see whether he has anything to say to sort of clarify some of this communication gap we have where the cabinet secretary is saying it was Iran and the president not willing to go there, Tom.
All right, thank you very much. Eamon Javers on the North Lawn.
The energy stocks are soaring on the back of this. Chevron and Exxon preventing the Dow from falling even further today. Bob Bassani has more at the New York Stock Exchange. Bob?
Hello, Kelly. I just want to point out oil has been rallying in the last hour. You could put up a chart of oil intraday. There's been concerns out there, reports the damage to the Saudi production facilities may take a little longer to repair than thought, so you see a little spike up in oil today. Companies that were exposed to U.S. production facilities in the Bakken and the Permian are especially strong. They were strong right at the outsets of Whiting, Oasis, EOGs. It tend to be small caps with the exception of EOG, really strong. Drillers are also rallying. It doesn't matter whether they're onshore or offshore. The offshore guys like Valaris and Seadrill, Diamond Offshore, they're all up double digits. Aside from the rally in energy, there's been a very predictable response in companies where oil is a significant cost component. So transportation stocks have been weaker, airline stocks, the logistics companies, C.H. Robinson, Royal Caribbean, and the cruise lines, all to the downside. There's also been flight to safety plays moving stocks, so lower bond yields have been pushing up utilities and REITs, one of the few outstanding sectors other than energy. Finally, guys, before you get too excited about this 3% move in energy stocks, even with up 3%, down 0.5% in S&P, bear in mind XLE, which is the big energy ETF, is a huge underperformer still. Even with these rallies, it's only up 9%, with the S&P up 19% for the year. Tyler, back to you.
Bob, thank you very much. For more on what this means for the energy market, let's bring in Andy Lippow. He is president of Lippow Associates, and Mike Kelly, Seaport Global Securities head of E&P strategy. Gentlemen, welcome. Andy, let me begin with you. How long do you expect this facility to be offline? And insofar as it is roughly half, I gather, of Saudi production, how much damage does it do to the oil market?
Well, the damage assessment is still going underway, but I look at it this way. I'm going to assume that about 5 million barrels a day of oil production is off the market for 3 weeks. Now, the Abcake facility consists of a lot of different equipment, and I think some parts of it might be restarted a little bit earlier, but there is significant damage to other parts of the facility that could keep it offline for months.
Mike, how long do you see this lasting, and how much of a price impact? I mean, we've seen today's gain. It's one of the biggest in history in oil, basically, in terms of a shock to prices. How long do you see that price level enduring at these heights?
Yeah, Tyler, thanks for having me on. So I think what we're hearing, most reports say this is kind of a 3-week deal in terms of downtime. And we kind of quantified it for clients today. We said, hey, there's 5.7 million barrels off the market for a month. That wipes out 15% of the OECD oil inventory. So that's a big deal here short term. And the question we're getting from clients is, okay, what's next? And I think all eyes are on the response from U.S. and Saudi. If we go after Iranian infrastructure, then we're going to have another big update like we saw today.
Mike, what do you make of the moves in the refiners, some of which are up just shockingly, shocking amounts? Is that an overreaction because of short interest, or is there a sound fundamental reason for that kind of price action?
Yeah, hey, Kelly, we've got some wild moves today, refiners and on the E&P front, too. I mean, some names that are thought of as kind of on the cusp of being over-levered, maybe heavily shorted, like a Whiting Petroleum's up 50% today. It's just a crazy move. And so on the refiners, certainly it gets a little bit more complicated. Saudi provides, a heavy barrel. And if those are now going to be hard to find, the crack spread for these refiners is going to go up substantially.
Does it justify, so for people right now, Mike, who are saying energy's been just an awful place to be, it's been a hard time making money, do I kind of chase these moves as this continues to play out, or do you think that, it's going to be hard to justify?
Yeah, well, I can see it going both ways. And we are seeing a lot of accounts on our desks today that have been they've been underweight energy, and they're saying, hey, this could be the start of something here. There's got to be a risk premium associated with oil now. I need some exposure. So I agree with that. If you're not involved, I think you have to be. And a lot of these names now are trading dirt cheap. So we're at 4 times EV to EBITDA on a number of high-quality names that this could be a good time to pick up some names.
Andy, who replaces this supply in the short term, much of it going to Asia? How will Asia replace what they lose in imports from Saudi Arabia?
Well, first they're going to rely on some inventory, and the Saudis say they have about 200 million barrels of inventory that they could load. But if we were looking for replacement production, the only spare capacity of significance is from Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates of about 900,000 barrels a day. And I would expect that Russia could also increase their production because they've been part of this OPEC Plus group that has reined in some production. But if people are looking for the U.S. to all of a sudden ramp up production, that's really not in the cards. The drillers are going to continue drilling and producing in the Permian, but they just can't switch it on in the volume that we want. So what I do expect is that if prices continue to rise, you'll see a coordinated effort between the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserves and those reserves in the EU and Asia to make up the shortfall.
So let me ask the obvious question. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. How much is gasoline at the pump, Andy, likely to go up in price? How quickly and for how long?
Well, I'm expecting gasoline prices to go up 20 cents a gallon at the pump. It's actually starting today because we've seen the wholesale price in the pipelines go up that much. The racks, which is the point at which gasoline is loaded into truck to take it to your service station, they're up 15 to 20 cents a gallon. So there is going to be some sticker shock from the consumer really starting tomorrow. But over the next week to 10 days, you're going to see that national average go above $2.70 a gallon.
Interesting. All right, Andy, we appreciate your time. Mike Kelly, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Coming up, the oil shock just adding to the list of things the market's worried about. But what's the biggest concern for your money? We'll have that next. Plus, when is the Boeing 737 MAX going to be able to get back in the air? The brand new head of the FAA is joining us for an exclusive interview coming up on Power Lunch.
I believe ETFs are a great way to invest in the market.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
What's that, Britain? You want unlimited data? Oh, you want more. You want it on the unstoppable, unbeaten, unrivaled #1 network? Well, who says you can't? Get unlimited data on EE today, the UK's unrivaled #1 network.
Unlimited data, personal use only. Terms apply. Route metrics comparison of 4 mobile networks H2 2013 to H1 2019. See ee.co.uk.
1 in 4 children believe potatoes grow on trees. 1 in 5 children believe fish fingers are made from chicken. And 1 in 8 adults believe the moon landings didn't happen. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Need to get your chocolate fix, like, now? Simply press the dashboard chocolate button to zap the chocolate of your choice right into your hand.
A dashboard chocolate button chocolate teleporter will never happen. But with a new BP Me Rewards card, getting more of the treats you love more often will. Search BP Me Rewards to find out more. BP, every day, brighter.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Welcome back to Power Lunch. We're counting down to the big Fed decision on interest rates on Wednesday. The markets are expecting another cut, but it's not just the Fed that Wall Street is watching and worried about. The ongoing trade war with China, rising geopolitical tensions. Look at what happened with Saudi over the weekend. Those are looming over this market. So what is the biggest risk for your money? Michael Aroney is Chief Investment Strategist with State Street Global Advisors, and Mike Ryan is Chief Investment Officer with UBS Global Wealth Management. Welcome to you both. And Mike, you only get to pick one. What is it? What do you think is the biggest risk for this market?
So from my perspective, I'd still say the backdrop on trade is probably the biggest issue. You know, this is the one that's most disruptive to the global supply chain. It's the issue that's had the biggest impact so far on the slowdown in manufacturing. And it's also the one that the Fed is looking now to respond to. So if I got to pick one, I'm going to go with trade as still being the biggest issue right now on the table.
All right, and we're going to go with your Mike and Michael, your Michael. So Michael, he says it's trade. Do you agree on that? And again, the reason why we pose the question this way is to look at what it would take for the markets to be able to climb to these new highs and then higher from here. What do you think it would be?
So I think that trade is the biggest issue right now. If you look at the way economic expansions end three ways, the central banks tighten too aggressively like the Fed. Well, it looks like they're going to ease. Some type of government policy mistake like trade. And then lastly, an exogenous factor, perhaps like the Saudi situation that happened over the weekend, although I don't think that's big enough. So from my perspective, I would agree with Mike that I think that trade is the biggest issue or risk facing markets right now. And I think what's interesting about that is the market's telling you that. So in both May and August, when the trade discussions kind of went off the rails, you saw the markets react negatively. And when we get signs of positive sentiment, you see that markets respond more favorably as they have in the last week or so.
So, Michael Aroni, you just mentioned the three things that cause economic cycles to turn. The Fed tightens too aggressively. You cite the fact that they've been cutting at least, and they're expected to. But they had been tightening, and a lot of people thought too much too quickly. Government makes a mistake. Trade, arguably, you've got that. Third, arguably, you've got an exogenous shock here, though you think it's not quite as monumental as to tip the global economy. But what are the odds that the economic cycle is in the last innings of this global expansion, and particularly expansion in the U.S.?
Well, if we look at the data last week, it wouldn't suggest to me that an economic recession's anywhere on the horizon. Small business optimism, consumer sentiment, both were positive. Retail sales came in pretty positively. Inflation came in above expectations. So from my perspective, what's really interesting is without the U.S.-China trade conflict, I'm not even sure we'd be talking about the Fed because I don't think the Fed would be reducing rates at all.
Mike, what about you? When it comes to expectations for the rest of the year, we've had this big move upwards in interest rates just in the last week or so. Does that make future cuts less likely?
No, I don't think so. I think what the Fed is going to have to do, and I think Michael laid it out pretty well, I think if we had some progress in the trade front, it would probably ease the pressure on the Fed to go out and cut rates. But as long as we're going to keep this as a backdrop, as long as it's going to be the overhang of trade, and now we complicate that further with the spike in energy prices, this keeps enough friction in the global economy that it keeps the Fed in place. So we're looking for this week about 25 basis points in the Fed. We also think that over the course of the next, say, 12 to 18 months, we expect cumulatively about 125 basis points cuts by the Fed.
Wow.
So our view here is that the Fed is now looking to extend this cycle, and one way to do it is through a policy.
Yeah, 1.25 of cuts almost sounds like a financial crisis, Mike. But to what you said about the oil spike and the way that that'll play out, then you're on the team that says it's likely to be dovish for the Fed, not hawkish through the price channel.
It is. First of all, remember that when we get these one-time price shocks, the Fed look through those and they look at what the economic impact is. So, yeah, there may be a near-term spike in terms of finished goods inflation, but that's transitory, and the Fed really looks through and what it does to long-term consumption. Now, by the way, I want to be clear here about 125 basis points. We're not looking for a financial crisis. We're not looking for a recession. What we are looking, though, is that the fact that we've seen inflation has frustratingly been below the Fed's target of 2%, and that growth is now once again below trend. The Fed wants to make sure that this expansion doesn't fall into jeopardy, that we don't wind up seeing monetary policy wind up becoming a problem rather than a solution. So I think that's why you're going to see the Fed continue to ease policy, balance of this year into next year as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you both. Appreciate it, guys. Mike Ryan and Michael Aroni talking about these markets today. Well, we talked about how interest rates had been on the rise. Let's get to the bond market, Rick, and talk about the fallout from these Saudi attacks. So how are you seeing it play out?
Well, we are seeing it play out, but truly, just to put some perspective, we're 176 in a 2-year note, which means it's down 4 basis points, where it's been hanging out on the street corner for many hours, probably because there's a Fed meeting that begins tomorrow. If you look at a 2-day of 10s, though, 10s are now down 7 basis points, which isn't huge. It's still at 183. Think not long ago we were in the 140s. I guess the point is that we have a big deal going on in the oil markets. But when most people look up and see $62 oil, or they see 7 basis points or 6 basis points in treasuries, it really doesn't flash a lot of yellow lights. After the ECB meeting with strong retail sales, the market was much more active. And another thing, everybody worries about rates and stocks. Here's a 1 week going all the way back to the first day, 8 sessions actually, of tens versus the Dow. You can see they've gotten along nicely. It looks like their streak, both markets, of 8 higher rates, 8 higher Dow, is going to end today. And finally, the dollar index, obviously the beneficiary of some of the oil flight to safety. But then again, it's only up a little bit more than 1/3 of a cent. So as many traders monitor the nervousness, we continue to see that something like retail sales and the ECB action still seems to have the biggest outside effect in a lingering fashion on the Treasury complex. Tyler, back to you.
Rick, thank you very much. Rick Santelli. We are just minutes away now from the closing trades for oil on its biggest day in many a moon. The closing numbers are coming up. And look at the impact it is having on oil stocks. As you see, Exxon and Chevron are moving higher. West Texas crude up 13%. Whiting Petroleum up nearly 50%. But that's dragging down some of the airlines. Could the oil issue be a headwind that keeps those stocks grounded? Power Lunch will be right back.
The Bond Report.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
First world problem number 346.
Well, you know, people might think I'm exaggerating, but since Virgin Atlantic announced their sale, I can't sleep. 1 minute my head is in New York, the next I'm searching for shows in Vegas. I can't stop. So many choices. South Africa, the Caribbean, California. My search history is a total mess. Oh, I might need to bring it up with my life coach.
Seriously? Get a flight. Bing bong. The Virgin Atlantic sale is now on. Visit virginatlantic.com and fly direct from London.
To advertise the McCafe range from McDonald's, we could use a deep voiceover.
Like this. They describe our coffee using words like robust and intense, but said very slowly and with an echo. Robust, robust, robust. Intense, intense, intense. We could do all that.
But we don't. What we do is use freshly ground Arabica beans and organic milk. McCafe. Great tasting coffee. Simple.
With a new Corsa Griffin, you'll get a whole host of features.
Really?
As standard.
Oh, come on.
For just $159 a month and $159 initial rental.
No way.
Corsa Griffin. All Griffin, no bull.
What? Seriously?
Search Corsa Griffin. Vauxhall. British brand since 1903. Available at participating retailers while stocks last. Personal contract hire on Corsa Griffin 3-door 1.475 PS. Subject to status, T's and C's, 18+. Initial rental 159 plus 47 months at 159. Contracted mileage 24,000. You will not own the car. Vauxhall Finance Leasing.
Welcome back to Power Lunch. I'm Mike Santoli at the New York Stock Exchange. The oil rally grounding airline stocks today. American Airlines, United, JetBlue, and Delta leading the transports lower after an attack on Saudi Arabia's oil facilities triggered Brent crude's biggest intraday move ever today.
let's bring in your Trading Nation team, Bill Baruch of Blue Line Futures and Nancy Tengler of Tengler Wealth Management. So, Bill, this group was, I guess, just trying to start to work a little bit better here, again, in that cyclical value stock comeback. This knocks the airlines back. How would you play it?
Well, seasonally, this is when you want to be looking to buy airline stocks. I mean, that's because crude oil peaks in September, October, and over the last 20 years has averaged from peak to trough about an 8% sell-off. And this brings a good support to airlines. So, you know, I'm not saying the top in crude oil is here right now, but we could see crude oil top around $65, $66. And that's, again, going to be supportive to airlines. I like some of these strongly trending airline stocks. And first, I'm looking at United Airlines. It's out above the 50, out above the 200-day moving average. And we could see a move up to a trend line resistance up around 96, 95 and a half, 96 bucks. And then I'm also looking at Southwest. Southwest is about to see the 50-day moving average cross out above the 200. It's held the trend line support, and then that could really bring a tailwind, moving it up to somewhere in the ballpark of 60 bucks to that trend line resistance. So I think these are opportunities to buy, and Southwest has paired a lot of its losses already today.
Yeah, Nancy, I mean, obviously energy prices are just one input here. You have to sort of evaluate where we are in the economic cycle and pricing trends in the group, which does tend to look cheap, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that they're a great value.
Yeah, Mike, on our work, they don't look terribly cheap. We look at relative price to sales ratio. We had owned the group in a couple of years back, and actually they got into our sell ranges and we got out. So we've been expressing our commitment to the space through the couriers like FedEx and UPS, who frankly are not down much today. And we've got earnings with FedEx tomorrow. You know, this is a group that's been also pummeled by trade. So we think there's more positive catalysts for that group, less dependent on oil than the airlines. So we're not in that trade.
All right. So fly boxes, not people for profits right now, I guess, is the lesson. Nancy, thank you very much. And Bill, appreciate it. For more Trading Nation, head to our website or follow us on Twitter at Trading Nation. Tyler, back over to you.
Michael, thank you very much. And ahead on Power Lunch, we will talk airlines with the new head of the FAA, Stephen Dixon. This will be his first on-air interview since he has taken that position. Plus, the OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma declaring bankruptcy, what this means for those pending opioid cases against the company. And the streaming wars have been tough on Netflix so far. It lost some old friends and it got kicked out of the office, but today it strikes a deal to become the exclusive streaming home of Seinfeld. We'll explain more when Power Lunch returns.
And now, the latest from TradingNation.cnbc.com and a word from our sponsor.
If you're an active trader, sitting on the sideline can be difficult, but it's important to resist the temptation to overtrade. In times of high volatility, you may want to consider trading less or reducing the size of your trades. And when things really get crazy, well, sometimes the best trade to make is no trade at all. I'm Joanna Payne, and Schwab is the better place for traders.
Okay. For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Nurses like you love the RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Here's why.
It's an easy way to get your CPD hours.
There are loads of job opportunities on the day.
The free workshops are great for learning something new.
It's an event just for us. The RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Coming to London on the 17th and 18th of September. Register now for free entry. Search RCNI Events.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
This one shouldn't take long. course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
British summer can be as unpredictable as the weather. Footwear dilemma. Introducing convertible wellies. 1 minute they're wellies and boots, the next flip-flops.
Oh, slightly embarrassing. Convertible wellies will never happen. However, with the new BP Me